Hey, vinyl community, we are back. Sorry, it's been a little while. We came down with an illness last week. I believe it was probably the norovirus because it knocked me out for quite some time. But we are back. Lots of love, lots of interest on the last video, so thank you for that. This one's going to be a little bit of a different vein. And the question I pose to you is, who is Lee Hazelwood? What is LHI Records, and why should we care? So let's get into it. Lee Hazelwood was an American pop and country singer. He had primarily albums that came out in the 60s and 70s. That was probably the time he was working the most. He was also a producer, and LHI Records, which was Lee Hazelwood Industries, was his record label. And that record label went from 1967 to 1971, real short-lived, only 4 years, but why do we care? Why is it so significant? Because many of the albums that are on that label wound up on the asset archives. So they are important in many regards, in many respects. But the sound is varied. It's not all straight across the board psych. Some is country rock, some is garage pop, some is instrumental, some is baroque pop, chamber pop. So it was quite the label indeed. But let's start off with a little bit more background information about Mr. Lee Hazelwood. I'm going to show you a couple albums along the way. So he was born in Oklahoma, and he had albums for a bunch of different labels, and he did have some albums that were on the LHI label. This one here is called Lee Hazelwood. It's Cause and Cure. It's a nice one here in the shrink with 57-cent sticker on there. I don't think I paid 57 cents for it. I wish. So this is Mr. Hazelwood right here. And he was coined with a genre, and this was after, for cowboy psychedelia, or saccharine underground was the name of his sound. So that gives you kind of an idea of the type of music that you would hear from him. Here's one a little bit later on. You can see he's got the longer hair. This one was on Capitol. Poet, Fool, or Bum. This is a really good album here too. And like I mentioned, he did have several albums on his own LHI label, but he was not as popular for his solo work, more popular for his duet work, and more popular for producing Frank Sinatra's daughter, Nancy Sinatra. And I think this is my favorite album of hers. And there she is on the back bottom corner there with Lee Hazelwood. So Lee produced everything that Nancy Sinatra did, and I'm a huge fan of Nancy Sinatra, and he wrote most of the songs as well. And oddly enough, he also wrote for another member of the Rat Pack's family as well. So he wrote songs for Dina Martin, who was Dean Martin's daughter. So I guess he got the in connection with the Rat Pack, and he wrote it all the way into the bank. I'll show you another Nancy Sinatra, her first one that Lee worked with her. It's got the good old Sugar Town on it, one of my favorite. There he is there again on the back. So his label, the LHI, I'm going to show that now. Again, that started in 1967. The very first album, and this one's also in the Ass Archives, is called The Kitchen Sink. Everything But. So a play on words. This one is more of a garage rock, teen beat type album. It's very good. It's short. It's harder to find, but I'm going to show you the label now here as well, so you know what to look for when you're out in the wild. So here's the label here, and they were a subsidiary of Decca Records. So the very first album here, you can see down on the bottom corner there, will say Lee Hazelwood Industries Incorporated, distributed by Decca Distributing Corporation. So This is what the label looks like. It's got a rainbow label, very similar to Capitol, and then you've got the bust there with the LHI records. So one thing to look out for too is sometimes you'll see white label promos. White label promos do not exist on this label. A promo will say promotional copy on it, but it will be the same rainbow colored label. If you see a white label promo, it's unauthorized and it is not a true pressing. So I would steer clear because I've seen copies of those try to be sold on eBay for hundreds of dollars, and that's definitely not worth it. So that is the first one. I'm actually going to read the Acid Archives as long as I've got this one out here real quick. What they say about it. It's a pretty short little blurb on that one. Here's our Acid Archives book. And here's what they say about the kitchen sink. Came out in 1967. Again, this is the very first album to come out on LHI Records. This album has a really nice teen-style garage pop charm with enthusiastic playing and good harmonies. The guitars are jangly, not fuzzy. They weren't songwriters, unfortunately, so while the album is enjoyable from start to finish, it's also somewhat disposable. They get extra points for turning codeine into needles and pins. Kitchen Sink were LHI's first signing debut with a 45 in November of 66, followed by this album in May 67. Both stereo and mono exist using the same catalog number. And that's another thing I'm going to point out that's kind of confusing. So this first album has the catalog number of E12000. The next one I'm going to show has a really similar catalog number, which, again, they don't have that many albums, but it makes it confusing. So the next album is, the artist name is Arthur, and his real name is Arthur Lee, and it's not this Arthur Lee here, not from Love. We love love, but not this Arthur Lee. It's this Arthur Lee right here. And the name of this album is Dreams and Images. And I'll show you the label on this one as well. And now you can probably see our catalog number right here is 12,000. And this one came out in 68. So it's not E12000, but it's 12,000. And this one came out in 68. And it seems like there's a pattern that the ones with the E, the prefix of the E, came out in 67. And the ones that came out in 68, they dropped that, which I don't know if that's lazy or what that is. But so this is a mono promo, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is what a mono promo should look like. Same rainbow label, promotion copy, not for sale. If it's white, leave it alone. Run away. It's not worth your time. This is a really awesome album. It's not very psychedelic. His voice is absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. I would rate this more like psych pop, baroque pop, chamber pop even. There's strings and there's lots of different instruments. It's very beautifully choreographed. It's not very psychedelic, but this one is also in Acid Archives. This one's relatively rare, but it's a really good album. Definitely worth a listen. If you can stream it or if you run across it, I would pick it up. It's definitely worth your time. Okay. The next album is a really strange one. This one is, here we have the E. This is E12001 now, so they're a new number. They added a 1 at the end. But this one's called Lee Hazelwood Presents the 98% American Mom and Apple Pie 1929 Crash Band. So this one is kind of an anomaly. It's pretty funny. It's experimental. It's 100% instrumental. But he has these characters here playing in the band that are all stereotypes, right? So the band leader here is Lester Lanolin, and his Pencil Delphians, it says. And then this gal here, Pauline Pure, defender of good, beater of drums. And then this extremely Hasidic Jewish fella here, Dwayne Goldfarb, king of the pluckers. And then we have Ho 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 Chi Min, second abacus player. And then we have the Indian gal down here, Minnie Tonka, and it says, guess which hand has the dandruff cure. I'm guessing it's the one with the hatchet has the dandruff cure. And then we have Sam Ponderosa and his magic comb. And lastly, Miss Kitty and her stick shift auto harp. So this was basically a vehicle for Lee Hazelwood to showcase a lot of the songs that he wrote that Nancy Sinatra made famous, right? He has Summer Wine, These Boots Are Made for Walking, Friday's Child, Sugar Town, Shades, So Long Babe, How Does That Grab You, Darlin'? These are all songs that Nancy Sinatra kind of took and ran with, but I think he just wanted another go at it, and he had the label, and he had the time, the money, and the ability, so I guess why not? One's really more of a curio than anything else. If you can pick one up cheap, I would, but I wouldn't spend a bunch of time scouring the earth for it, trying to find it. So this one is probably one of the biggest off of the label and the most sought after. And this is the International Submarine Band. And this one has Mr. Graham Parsons. He's right there. And again, we have 12,001. So this one came out in 1968, and this one comes out in mono and stereo. I do have both copies here. This is the mono. And again, the mono only came out, since it came out in 68, only came out promotional. So I'm going to show you again the label one more time. Sorry, I'm being really tedious here, but I don't want anybody to get burned, because if you get the white label promo, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be upset, and you more than likely will have spent quite a bit of money on it. So this is what it looks like again. If you're trying to get it, it's just going to say promotion copy, not for sale on it. And it's going to have the rainbow label. And this album is phenomenal. It's one of the favorite in my catalog, and arguably the birth of country rock down in Southern California, down in LA. And I've got a stereo copy as well. Really love this album. This one is, I would say, worth your time, worth your patience, worth your dollar if you can find an original. There's tons of reissues, tons of represses as well. But again, please, please, please steer clear of the white label promo. It's a scam, it's a racket, and it's not worth your time. I'll show you the stereo copy here real quick too. Same song and dance, just stereo. All right. And the last LHI album that I have is called The Surprise Package, Free Up. And Psychedelic actually showed this on one of his videos. That's where I had heard of it first, was he showed this album and played it. It's really good psych rock. This one is a little bit more difficult to find. And I'll show you the label changed here too. They changed around 69, 70 to this orange label. And Decca was also acquired by ABC, so they'll say ABC on the bottom instead of Decca. The label looks like that. This is stereo. No mono version exists of this one. But this is a really, really good album. It's very accessible. It is difficult to find. If you can stream it, I would definitely stream it. And the one that I don't have yet on LHI Records is called The Aggregation, and that one is acid rock, it's psych rock, it's highly sought after. It also is in the acid archives. That one usually goes for big bucks. I know there are reissues available of that, but that's one I've got my eye out for. I might put a link up so you can see what it looks like. It's a really cool cover. But that is Mr. Lee Hazelwood in a nutshell. A few other fun facts about him. He was named number 9 on Rolling Stones of best duets, so ranked 9 out of 20. So best duet with Nancy Sinatra. He also in 1970 moved to Sweden to escape taxes and probably the downfall of his record label in 71, and also his son to escape possibly being drafted into the Vietnam War. He was worried about that. They moved to Sweden, and he had a TV show there called Cowboy in Sweden that he was in, and he lived there for 10 years before moving back to the States. Yeah, and he's just a really interesting guy. He's got a interesting slice of Americana, and the record label that he left us with, again, only 4 short years, but just a smattering of albums that are highly sought after. Most are in the Acid Archives now, worth your time to check out. So that's kind of what I have for you this time around is my label spotlight. We'll come at you with another video here a little bit quicker this time. I don't plan on getting sick, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.